But for right now, let's get to Dr. Dennis Cuddy. We're going to be continuing the story of the secret Nazi plan. Go right ahead, Dennis.
Well, we had finished part 15 last week, and as usual, I, at the beginning of each part of this series, try to have some introductory note of contemporary importance. And in this part, part 16, the idea that our government covers up things. Often I write about these things and I document them and so on, but it does help immensely when somebody else actually comes along and confirms that our government has been up to certain things. It's sort of like the Brotherhood of the Bell movie with Glenn Ford. Toward the end, Glenn was desperate and saying, I wonder if anybody's going to listen. And his fellow faculty member said, it's a strange thing, Glenn. He didn't. Glenn is his real name, but he had another name in the in the Brotherhood of the Bell. He says, it's a strange thing. One person can say things and people somewhat ignore it, but if a second person comes along and verifies it, then the people start to listen up. So that's what I'm doing at the beginning of this part 16 regarding 9/11 and our invasion of Iraq. This is an insider, and he basically confirms what I and some others have been saying, but it adds an element of importance in that this is a fellow on the inside. So in 2003, if any of you have been keeping up with what I've written for that long, I had a book called Cover Up, Government Spin or Truth, regarding 9/11 and the war with Iraq. Well, there's a new book out not too long ago called The Reluctant Spy by John Kiriakou. That's Kiriakou. And it confirms that our government has covered up important information regarding those two events. Shortly after 9/11, in March of 2002, the author, that's Kiriakou, went to Pakistan. And he was there as a chief of counterterrorism operations for the CIA. So this isn't some low-level person. This is chief of counterterrorism for the CIA, Pakistan. This is about as important as you get. Well, he and the team members there in Pakistan raided the Taliban embassy in that country. And among the things they found were files with 163 phone bills of calls to all over the United States. And those calls ended September 10, 2001, just the day before 9/11. They ended, and then 6 days later, they pick up again on September 16th. Now, you would think those would be absolutely critical if you really had the intention of stopping terrorism in the U.S., and finding who the perpetrators were and their allies. I mean, this would be like, you know, the necessary tidbit that opens the whole case up, and much information flows from it. Well, what did he do with them? Well, they were turned over to the FBI, because FBI is in charge of internal investigations within the U.S., because they could reveal terrorist contacts here. Extremely important. But 2 years later, the author, Kiriakou, learned that the numbers, those 163 files with phone numbers on them, that they had contacted, the terrorists had contacted in this country, had never been taken out of the box in which they were sent to the FBI. And they had been sent to a storage facility in Maryland, never to be seen again. This was shocking. This amazed the fellow. My question that I ask is, well, what if there were another major terrorist attack that could have been prevented by monitoring the people to whom those calls were made here? Secondly, the FBI requested the author, Kiriakou, to give them not only the copies of the phone bills, but the originals as well. Well, why would they want both if they were not going to take them out of the box, but just put them in a storage facility? Then my final question on that paragraph is, might there have been numbers in those files that the FBI did not want anyone else to know about? There may be some other explanation, but it boggles the mind as to what it would be. Secondly, he's not done, the author, Kiriakou. When he returns to the U.S. himself, he got a promotion to executive assistant to the deputy director of the CIA. And when he got that promotion, he had to take this secrecy oath. So he asked the fellow, the oath administrator, why his pledge of silence was important. And he was told, quote, here's the deal. This is the oath administrator going to give him a secrecy oath, and he says, why I got to take this thing? So the oath administrator says, here's the deal. Quote, here's the deal. Next year, in March of 2003, we're going to invade Iraq. We're going to overthrow Saddam Hussein, and we're going to open the largest air base in the world, end quote. Now remember, he was told this almost a year before the Iraq War began. And my comment is, so much for the reluctant invasion due to discovery of weapons of mass destruction. A whole year, this was the plan all along.
And, of course, you know, the amazing thing, I actually interviewed that gentleman, and he's fascinating, really a nice guy, and I think he was really a very honest individual. I asked him how he ever got that permission to repeat the story that you've just told. Well, he said, I mean, he wrote the book, he turned it in, and they told him he couldn't print it. He couldn't put this information out. He tried to negotiate with them. Nothing worked. And finally, he called one of his friends and said, you know, this information is important, but CIA won't let me get it out. I've signed the secrecy oath. What can I do? And the fellow said, you wait till Obama comes in. And there's going to be a lot of confusion there in the CIA. And we'll see that this information gets out because obviously there are people in the CIA who want the American people to know the truth. So he waits till Obama, you know, is elected, and there's the transition period, and he puts the book in again, and somebody there in the CIA gives him permission to reveal just what you said. In other words, they knew a year ahead of time. It's all planned, ladies and gentlemen. And, of course, George Bush is a war criminal. This was a planned war. There was no justification for it. Where is the call, you know, from the World Court to prosecute George Bush for an illegal war? It's deafening in its silence. We'll be right back. Nobody puts them together. At least nobody puts them together as well as Dr. Cuddy. Go right ahead, Dennis.
Well, picking up on what we were saying before the break, before I leave this, I want to stress again those 2 points and put it in a way that your listeners can appreciate perhaps better. What I'd like each of your listeners to do is pretend that you're the mayor of a city. All right, you're the mayor of a city, and you've just had this horrible attack upon you by terrorists. And then one of your aides comes in and says, guess what? We've just discovered from somebody who had been in the inside of these terrorists 163 phone numbers of calls that they made before this attack on people in your city. All right? Why would you, if you're the mayor, not even open the box that had those 163 numbers? Why would you not do that? Just think about that. The only reason I can think of is that you wouldn't open the boxes that you didn't need to. You already knew the numbers. You wanted all of those numbers, the copies and everything, sent to you, and then you'd stick them somewhere where nobody would ever see them. Just think about that for a minute. And then secondly, regarding the attack upon Iraq, known a year in advance, the final statement is important. The overthrow Saddam and so on and so on. But the fellow, among many, many, many things he could have said is, the final thing he said, the oath administrator to this author, he says, and we're going to build the largest air base in the world. Remember, the Project for the New American Century and that other group that I put in my expanded addendum to my book cover-up, they said the reason we're going is we need a permanent military presence there in the Middle East. Now, how do you get a permanent military presence? You have to have one to build the largest air base in the world. Well, you've got to have an invasion.